Okay, good morning, all the students. We'll now continue with our third lecture, which discusses about scaling out concept, and then carry on to the next lecture, that is on Hadoop streaming and how to use the combiner functions. So in the last two classes, we have seen how to write the map function and the reduce function in order to analyze the NCDC weather data set to find out which is the maximum temperature that is recorded in a particular year. In every year over the climatic conditions recorded over 100 years, right? And we have also started looking into this concept of scaling out, which we have left halfway because of lack of time. That will continue now. So we have seen how to write the mapper class, reducer class, and how to pack it into a job. And we have also seen that there are two types of nodes that control the job execution. Once the job is packed with the input path from which the file has to be read, the mapper class, the reducer class, and the output path to which the result has to be written. Right now, once the job is ready and a jar file, Java archive file is created in order to transport that job onto various data nodes in Hadoop cluster or in HDFS cluster. Now, how this task is performed, how this job is performed. This job is performed by two types of nodes, job trackers and task trackers. Right? Job tracker will coordinate all the jobs run on the system by scheduling tasks to run on task trackers. Now, task trackers run these tasks and send progress reports back to the job tracker at frequent intervals of time, which keeps a record of the overall progress of the job. Right? So how much a particular job has been completed. You understood that the input is not given at a time to one single machine. Input is divided into input splits, into parts, and they are assigned onto various data nodes. Now these data nodes will act as task trackers which perform the actual task and inform it to the job tracker. That is another machine which keeps track of scheduling the task to the task trackers, right? So job tracker is like a leader who actually takes care of scheduling the jobs or assigning the jobs to the task trackers. Task trackers are the original executors of the job in split manner. So all the jobs will be handed over to the machines on which the data resides, and those machines act as task trackers to perform that job. Right? This is how job trackers and task trackers work in coordination with each other to perform a particular job. Now, if any task fails, still job tracker can reschedule it on a different task tracker. Now, Hadoop divides the input to a map reduced job into fixed size pieces called as input splits. We knew this already. We understood this, that input will be processed in the form of splits, in form of small amounts of data rather than entire input at a time being processed. Right? So Hadoop creates one map task for each split, which runs the user-defined map function for each record in the split. Yes. Now, having many splits means the time taken to process each split is small compared to the time to process the whole input. That is why input splits are given rather than the entire input at a time to a machine. Now, so if we are processing the splits in parallel simultaneously by handing over multiple threads to the processing is better load balanced when the splits are small, since a faster machine will be able to process proportionally more splits over the course of the job than a slower machine. So if you keep the splits as simple, as small as possible, then machines will be able to load balance easily, so that if the splits are small, they can be executed very fast and more splits can be processed one after the other. Okay, so the splits, when they are executed in parallel, better load balancing can be achieved, so that you can distribute the splits onto the machines which are having some free map tasks on it, or which is having some space to perform map tasks on it. Now, even if the machines are identical, failed process or other jobs running concurrently make load balancing desirable, and the quality of the load balancing increases as the splits become more fine grained. So as you reduce the size of split, when you divide an input file into multiple files called as input splits, now as small as you can maintain this particular input split, that better you can achieve load balancing. But this can't go to the minimum level, means you can't make the input splits too small, right? On the other hand, if splits are too small, what will happen? The overhead of managing the splits and of map task creation begins to dominate the total job execution time, right? So the time taken to execute the entire job, that will be dominated, that will dominate if you go on making the splits smaller and smaller. Understand this carefully. As you go on making the input split smaller and smaller, this overhead of managing the splits will increase, and map task creation begins to dominate the total job execution time. Now you have to spend more time in map job creation, in map task creation itself, and it will dominate the time taken by it will dominate the time that is taken to execute the entire job. Okay, so you have to know where to maintain the balance, where to stop making the split smaller and smaller, so that you will be able to achieve better load balancing. At the same time, fine graining of the splits also happens at the right amount, in a right amount of data, okay, right amount of size. For most jobs, a good split size tends to be the size of HDFS block. Yes, we know that HDFS block size, default size is 64 MB, and most of the jobs we tend to make a good split with this size. That is like a thumb rule, so that we need not have a doubt where to stop fine graining of this input split, where to stop making this input split smaller and smaller. It can be the thumb rule can be this can be taken as, the size can be taken as 64 MB, which is same as the default HDFS block size. And although this can be changed for the cluster or specified when each file is created, you can specify the input split size when each file is created, right? Then also you can take this as a default size for a good input split, that is 64 MB. Now Hadoop does its best to run the map task on a node where the input data resides in HDFS. And this is called as data locality optimization. Now sometimes all three nodes hosting the HDFS block replicas for a map task input split are running other map tasks, means they're busy running other map tasks. In such case, the job scheduler will look for a free map slot on a node in the same rack as one of the blocks, or very occasionally in extreme cases, if that is also not free, then an off-rack node is used to perform the data analysis. For this, some network transfer or network bandwidth is required. This is indicated by this figure very clearly. Say this HDFS block is going to be assigned to this particular node for the map task to be performed. Now say that node is not free, it is busy running other map tasks. In such cases, it can go for an off rack. In this case, you can see if this is if this is preoccupied with other map tasks, in such scenarios, it can go for other HDFS block on a different rack. in order to perform this map task. Now, remember, we are not transferring the data, we are trying to transfer the computation, right? We are trying to transfer the computation from one data node to another data node, where the data actually resides. Now, this node is being assigned to this map job. Say that node is not free, it is running on other map jobs. In such cases, it will locate another data node that is free of map jobs to execute the task on a different rack, right? These are all racks. As I said, this is a cluster, and these white components are called as data nodes. Now, on this data nodes, if one data node is busy with the map task, then the HDFS cluster will try to locate another data node that is free of map jobs to execute that particular task. Now, in extreme cases, even this data node also may be running other map jobs. In such a case, it will go to an off-rack node. Off-rack node means not in the same node, so not in the same rack, not in a different rack in the same cluster, but it may have to search for a node on a different cluster, entirely different cluster, in order to assign that HDFS block to run the map task. In such cases, you may have to utilize the network bandwidth in order to transfer that HDFS block to a different node to execute the map task. Got it? So initially, what is the first case? Initially, it tries for a data node on the same rack. If that is busy with map task, it will try to find out a data node on a different rack in the same cluster. If still it is busy with map task, it will try to find out another data node on completely different cluster. In this last case, some data transfer has to happen in order to bring the data local to the map job. Right? For that, it utilizes some network bandwidth to transfer the data. And that is shown in this case. C, it is labeled as C. It involves some data transfer by utilizing the network bandwidth in order to perform the map task. Because on the same rack, on a different rack in the same cluster, the data nodes are very busy with other map tasks. So you have to transfer the HDFS block onto a different data node in a different cluster in order to perform the map task, right? This is how we need to manage if the data nodes are busy with more number of map tasks. Now it should now be clear why the optimal split size is the same as the block size. Now it should be very clear for you why we have made the optimal good amount of split size to be the same as block size, that is 64 MB. Because it is the largest size of the input that can be guaranteed to be stored on a single node. That is why it is always better to stop at this stage to keep the split size as 64 MB. Now, if the split spanned two blocks, what will happen? Say, if an input split is stored on two different blocks, it would be unlikely that any HDFS node stored both blocks. So some of the split would have to be transferred across the network to the node running the map task, which is clearly less efficient than running the whole map task using local data. So what will happen in this case? Say there is an input split, say input split 1. Instead of storing it on a single data node, if we are storing this on two data nodes, what will happen? If this input split is large enough so that it is stored on two data nodes, what will happen? When you send a map task to this particular data node, then if this map task is busy, then it has to go to the next data node to perform the task, but the block is still available with this data node only. So it has to wait for the data node to complete the task, transfer the block of data, only then execute the data processing task. So what happens in this case? When some of the split would, in this case, some of the split would have to be transferred across the network to the node running the map task. So the data transfer should happen at any cost in this case, right? Because you can't manage to execute a map task on one single data node when the blocks of data is spread on two different nodes. So you have to compromise with data transfer. You have to compulsorily perform the data transfer from one node to another node in order to execute that map task on that block of data, which is spread across two data nodes. Got it? For this, because of this, it becomes less efficient than running the whole map task using one single data node. That is why we tend to keep the optimal split size to be same as the block size, and that is 64 megabytes. Now map tasks write their output to the local disk, not to HDFS, because map output is intermediate output. Remember, map task output is always an intermediate output. This map task output is not utilized anywhere other than the reduced task. Understand this carefully. Map task output is not utilized anywhere other than the reduced tasks input. So this map task output is not stored anywhere, but it is just grouped and shuffled and transferred onto the reduced task as input. So map tasks write their output to the local disk, not to HDFS. Remember, it is not written to the HDFS cluster. It is not written to any file on the HDFS cluster. Map tasks write their output to the local disk, not to the HDFS, because map output is intermediate output. It's processed by reduced task to produce the final output, and once the job is complete, the map output is simply thrown away. It is not stored anywhere. Once the map's output is utilized as input by the reduce phase, then that map's output is thrown away and it is not saved on any file in the HDFS cluster. So storing it in HDFS with replication would be an overhead here. It will be an overkill. Overkill means unnecessary process, right? So storing it in HDFS, that too with multiple copies to maintain the replication factor, is simply a waste of task, right? So if the node running the map task fails before the map output has been consumed, this is another case you have to consider. If the node running the map task fails before the map output has been consumed. Now a machine that is executing the map task, it is giving an output. Now while giving the output, before it is consumed by the reduce phase, if the map task fails, what will happen? That we are going to discuss. If the node running the map task fails before the map output has been consumed by the reduced task, then Hadoop will automatically rerun the map task on another node to recreate the map output. Got it? What will Hadoop do? What is the alternative that is performed by Hadoop in case of a map task failure before its output is consumed by the reduced task? It will automatically rerun the same map task on another healthy node to recreate the map output. Now that map output is taken by the reduced job. Okay, so this has to be watched. You should be very watchful about how a map task failure can be handled if it fails before its output is consumed by the reduced task. Now, reduced tasks don't have the advantage of data locality. Map task has the advantage of data locality because map functions are passed on to the data nodes. Now, you write a map function here, and this script you're passing on to various data nodes where the blocks of data of a single file resides. Understand this carefully. A map function, once it is written by the user, this map function is transferred onto various data nodes where the blocks of data of a single file resides, right? to achieve the concept of data locality, to achieve the feature of data locality, which is called as data locality optimization. You're trying to reduce the amount of data transfer between the nodes by passing the map function to the data nodes rather than passing the data. But we have also seen some extreme cases when these data nodes are busy with other map tasks, then you may have to locate another data node that is free, to which you have to transfer your data rather than the map function. Okay, that is extreme case. There some network bandwidth is utilized, but in the reduced task, if you take the case of reduced task, it doesn't have the advantage of data locality. It doesn't strive, it doesn't struggle for data locality. Only map function struggles for data locality, but reduced task doesn't have the advantage of data locality. The input to a single reduced task is normally the output from all mappers, right? So when you take a reduced job, it receives input from many map jobs. Map 1, which process input split 1, map 2, which process input split 2, and map 3, which process input split 3. If there are more splits, then there will be more number of map jobs. Now all these map jobs outputs will be fed to the reduced job, will be fed to the reduced phase as input. Now, the input to a single reduced task is normally the output from all map tasks or from all mappers. Now, in the present example, we have a single reduced task that is fed by all the map tasks. Now, in the example of finding the maximum temperature recorded in a country across weather stations, we have only one single reduced task that is fed by all the map tasks. Okay. Therefore, the sorted map outputs have to be transferred across the network to the node where the reduced task is running. So what is happening here? All the maps outputs are transferred to the data node where the reduced job is running. Do not understand that map task is different and data node is different. Data nodes host the map task and same data nodes host the reduced task. These data nodes only act as job trackers and task trackers, right? You don't have many different entities. Data nodes play the role of executing a map function, reduce function, executing a job, say acting as a job tracker, acting as a task tracker. Everything is done by the data nodes only. Right? So when I say about map job, reduce job, these are the functions that are being executed on the data nodes. Understand it like that. Okay? These are not separate machines. Map is not a machine. Reduce is not a separate machine. Map job is being executed on data nodes. Reduce job is being executed on data nodes. Right? Therefore, the sorted map outputs have to be transferred across the network to the node where the reduced task is running, to the data node where the reduced task is running, where they are merged and then passed to the user-defined reduce function. So what will happen near the reduce data node? They will be merged, sorted, grouped, and passed to the user-defined reduce function, which actually reduces the final output and gives it to the client, which consolidates the output in a meaningful manner and gives it to the client, or writes it to a file in HDFS cluster. Okay, so the output of the reduce is normally stored in HDFS for reliability. Map output is not stored anywhere, but is fed as input to the reduce phase. But reduce phase's output is certainly written somewhere in order to see the result and in order to maintain replicated copies to meet reliability. Okay, so if that result is lost, other replicated copies will be available to make it reliable. For each HDFS block of the reduce output, the first replica is stored on the local node, with other replicas being stored on off-rack nodes. So how is the replication factor maintained for the reduce phases output? What is reduce phases output? Your final processing result. right? Now, how is that output maintained? The first replica, first copy is stored on the local node. Yes, we know that any replication factor will be maintained like this only. First, it is stored on local node, then it is stored on a different rack in the same cluster, then it is stored on a different rack in a different cluster. Same thing happens here. For HDFS block, for each HDFS block of the reduce output, the first replica is stored on local node, where with other replicas being stored on off-rack nodes. Let it be in the same cluster or a different cluster. Okay. Thus, writing the reduced output does consume network bandwidth, but only as much as normal HDFS write pipeline consumes. So, in order to send this reduced output, to maintain the replication factor 3, you have to send this reduced output to other two different nodes. One copy is maintained on a local node, so no data transfer is required. But in order to maintain the other two replicated copies to make the replication factor meet the default replication factor 3, other two copies have to be maintained other than on the local node. For this, it has to be transferred to an off-rack node and to an off-rack node on a different cluster. To transfer the data, you have to utilize the bandwidth, but it is very nominal. It is very small. It is like using a normal HDFS write pipeline. How much ever the bandwidth is consumed by HDFS write pipeline, same thing is done by this reduced job also. You know how to write data to a file on HDFS cluster. We have seen this in 4th chapter. Do you remember? How to write data to a file on the file system in HDFS cluster. Now, how much bandwidth is utilized for that? Same bandwidth is utilized to maintain this replication factor for the reduced phases output. Okay, so one copy is maintained on the local node and the other two copies are transferred. The data is transferred to maintain the other two copies on a off-rack node in the same cluster and off-rack node on a different cluster, if that can be maintained on the same cluster. Okay, that is an extreme case again. Now, sometimes you may prefer to customize the number of reduced tasks. You may have a single reduced task, you may have multiple reduced tasks, or sometimes you can prefer to not having a reduced task at all. Okay, that is in the hands of client. Based on the requirement, he can decide how many reduced tasks should be involved in a map reduce job. In this case, you can notice that we are having 3 input splits that are being mapped on to the data nodes to be run as 3 map jobs, right? These are all data nodes. These data nodes are receiving 3 data nodes here are receiving 3 input splits, and they give the output which are sorted for performing some pre-processing of the data. It sorts, copies the data, merges the data, combines them, and gives as single input in the form of key value pair, right? So the data is given in the key value in the form of key value pair to the reduce phase, which will further give the output again in the form of key value pair. Now this output has to be written onto a file in HDFS cluster by maintaining HDFS replication. In this case, if the replication factor is 3, then it has to be maintained as 3 copies. And as you learned before, 1 copy is maintained on the local node, 1 copy is maintained on an off-rack node in the same cluster, and if no more data nodes are free on that cluster, then it can also go for an off-rack node in a different cluster. That is how the default replication factor 3 is maintained. And also you have to remember that this intermediate data will not be stored anywhere. Once it is consumed by the reduce phase, then this entire data will be dropped, it is thrown away, and this reduce phase's output will be saved in some file and its replication factor is maintained. This is the scenario where you have single reduce task. Now, the number of reduced tasks is not governed by the size of the input, but instead it is specified independently. You can customize it. You can predetermine how many number of reduced tasks can be added to that particular job, right? It is not governed by the size of the input. Based on the input you need, it is not decided how many reduced tasks have to be assigned for a particular job. You can specify it independently. When there are multiple reducers, the map tasks partition their output, each creating one partition for each reduced task, right? When there are lots of reducers, when there are multiple reducers that you add to a map reduce task, in that case, the map task partition their output, divide their output, each creating one partition for one reduced task. Remember, the map job's responsibility is to feed each and every reduced task that is involved in a job. So the map task will partition their output in such a way that it creates one partition for each reduced task. Now there can be many keys and their associated values in each partition, but the records for any given key are all in a single partition. This we already we have seen this in the toy example we discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The records for any given key, say if the temperatures are recorded for year 1950, all those temperatures will be brought into a single partition. And again, some temperatures recorded in 1949. All the temperatures recorded in 1949 will be brought into a single partition, so that this will go for one reduced task and this will go for another reduced task as input. Okay, this is the task, this is the responsibility of map jobs. There can be many key value pairs in each partition, but the records for any given key, here 1950 or 1949, for any given key are all in a single partition. Records associated with this key should be in a single partition so that it will be given to one single reduced task. Now the partitioning can be controlled by a user-defined partitioning function, but normally the default partitioner, which buckets keys using a hash function, works very well. Okay, you can take any approach. You can use whatever approach you are interested in, but hash functions will work the best. Now in this case, we are considering multiple reduced tasks. Say here, in this case, we have three input splits which are assigned to three data nodes that run the map task and give certain output, which are copied, shuffled and merged. And the responsibility of map task in this case is to split this merged data into two different reduced tasks, because we have defined there should be two reduced tasks for this job. While writing the mapper class and reducer class, we defined that there should be two reducers in this particular job. That is why the map function's output will be divided into two different inputs and fed to the reduced phases rather than one output. Okay, so the map function's responsibility, the map phase's responsibility is to divide its outputs into number of reduced tasks and feed them. Okay, so here two reduced tasks are fed with the merged, sorted and grouped data, which will give two outputs. Now these two outputs again have to be saved on a file in HDFS cluster by maintaining the replication factor. Now the diagram makes it clear why the data flow between map and reduced tasks is colloquially known as the shuffle, as each reduced task is fed by many map tasks. Each reduced task is fed by data from different map tasks. That is why shuffling, sorting, and grouping has to happen. Now, the shuffle is more complicated than the diagram suggests, and tuning it can have a big impact on job execution time. So, to show in the figure, we are making it as simple as possible to show the shuffling task. But in original case, that is not as simple as we see in the figure. It is very complicated. And if we are able to fine tune this shuffle task, if we are able to optimize this shuffle task, this will have a big impact on the job execution time. If this data is intelligently shuffled so that all the records belonging to one single key reach one reduced job, all the values that belong to one single key reach one map job, one reduced job. In that case, you are trying to make the transfer of data between map job and reduced job as less as possible. Okay, so if you are able to fine tune this shuffling task, then it will have a big impact on job execution time. The job execution time will tremendously come down if this shuffling happens in an optimized way, so that the data transfer between a map job and the reduced job is minimized. Okay, you understood what I'm talking about? If this shuffling job is optimized, is fine-tuned in such a way that the data transfer between map phase and reduce phase can be minimized, that will automatically reduce the job execution time. It will increase the speed of response. Okay, finally, it is also possible to have zero reduced tasks also. Sometimes you can prefer to opt for no reduced tasks at all. This can be appropriate when you don't need the shuffle, because the processing can be carried out entirely in parallel. If you want the map jobs output to be directly written onto a file, written onto files on HDFS cluster without any intermediate involvement of reduced phase, in such cases, you can prefer to not use reduced jobs. In this case, the only off-node data transfer is when the map tasks write to the HDFS cluster directly. Okay, that is depicted in this figure. Here you can see 3 map jobs giving outputs which are not consumed by the reduced phase but are directly written onto HDFS cluster by maintaining the replication factor. Okay, so this map jobs output is directly written. All these map jobs outputs are parallelly written onto the HDFS cluster without the involvement of reduced phase to consolidate those outputs. Okay, if you don't want to consolidate the output, if you want all the outputs to be written separately, then you can avoid the reduced phase directly without having to define any reduced jobs, reduced tasks. Now we'll continue with our 4th lecture, which helps us to introduce combiner functions in between map function and reduce function. Okay, in this lecture, we'll cover on combiner functions and how to run a distributed map reduce job along with Hadoop streaming. This is very important question, students. You have to focus on this. And this is actually very useful function which helps us to minimize the data transfer between map and reduce jobs, which are called as combiner functions. Now, many map reduce jobs are limited by the bandwidth available on the cluster, so it pays to minimize the data transferred between map and reduce tasks. Now, we are always talking about the simplest scenario where all the data nodes are free, so that map task, its output will be given to the reduced task, and reduced task will give you the final output. But remember, on HDFS cluster, at a given point of time, thousands of such jobs will be running. not a single job. Thousands of such jobs will be running. Now, when the hundreds and thousands of such jobs are running, lots of data has to be transferred between map and reduce phases. Now, if you are able to optimize this data transfer between map and reduce jobs, then you can intelligently utilize the network bandwidth. Right? So many map reduce jobs are limited by the bandwidth available on the cluster because multiple map jobs are running at the same time. So it is always good to minimize the data transferred between map and reduce jobs. It pays for us. It gives us some advantage if you are able to minimize the data transferred between map and reduce jobs. Now, Hadoop allows the user to specify a combiner function to be run on the map output, and the combiner function's output form the input to the reduce function. So this Hadoop will allow us to introduce one intermediate function that is called as combiner function, which can be put between the map function and the reduce function, so that map function's output is taken by the combiner and some processing is done, which can be further given as input to the reduce phase. Now, because the combiner function is an optimization level, Hadoop does not provide a guarantee of how many times it will call it for a particular map output record, if at all it is called. Okay, combiner function is an optimization based on the amount of outputs that are given by map tasks. This combiner function will be repeatedly called in order to minimize the data transfer between map and reduce phase. Understand this carefully. Combiner functions are always run on the map side, and its output is given as input to the reducer phase. Okay, so if you consider this as the map phase, combiner function is attached to this map phase. It is run on the map side, whose input is given to the reduce phase. Right? Now, in this process, because combiner is introduced as an optimization technique, you can't decide how many times this combiner function is called. Based on the type of output that is given by the map phase, this combiner function will be called repeatedly in order to give the minimal amount of data to the reducer phase, to transfer minimal amount of data from map phase to the reducer phase. In other words, calling the combiner function 0, 1 or many times should produce the same output from the reducer. So though this combiner is present as an intermediate stage between map function and reduce function, between map phase and reducer phase, though this combiner function is present or not, whether this combiner function is present or not, it should give the same result. Reduce function should give the same result. Okay, remember, combiner is like an add-on to optimize the data transfer between map and reduce phase, but it doesn't it doesn't influence the output in any manner, right? Now, the contract for the combiner function constrains the type of function that may be used. You have to understand whether to include this combiner function based on the type of function you are deciding, based on the type of calculation you are making. Say finding the maximum of temperatures for this combiner function may be used, but finding average, it may differ. I'll show you how exactly we can do that. I'll show you with an example. For some kinds of aggregate functions, combiner functions may not be suitable because combining two different map outputs may give you a wrong result in some cases while using some aggregate functions. Okay, I'll show you where exactly we may go wrong in such cases. This is best illustrated with an example. How this combiner function actually works, that is best illustrated with this example. Suppose that for the maximum temperature example, readings from the year 1950 were processed by two maps because they were in different splits. Okay, say this is input split 1 and this is input split 2, which are run by two map jobs, map job 1 and map job 2. Observe, the key is the same, but because they are with two input splits, they are being run on two different data nodes by two different map jobs. Now, the result of the first map job will be, the result of the first map job will be 1950 with 0, 20 and 10 as the recorded A temperatures, and the result of this second map job will be 1950 with the recorded A temperatures 25 and 15. Right? Now the reduce function would be called with a list of all values. Now when this is passed to a reduce function, what will happen? What kind of input it receives? The input that is received by the reduce phase will look like this: 0, 20, 10, along with the next set of values. Now from this, the maximum temperature is located by the reduce function, that is 25. Okay, this is how actual map reduce job will be performed. Got it? Imagine the first map reduce job, map job produces this output, and the second map job produces this output. Now these two will be processed such that all the A temperatures for a particular key is combined, grouped and given as input to the reducer phase, which will locate the final output, that is 1950, and the highest temperature recorded in 1950, that is 25. This will be the output. This is the input of the reducer phase and this is the output of the reducer phase. Got it? Now in this case, we could use a combiner function that, just like the reduce function, finds the maximum temperature for each map output. So the reduce would then be called with directly 20 and 25. So what happened here? We are trying to introduce a combiner function which will act on this map output, which gives us an output like this directly, 1950. And in 1950, what is the maximum temperature here? 20. This is the job of combiner function. It takes the map's output and finds out at its stage what is the maximum temperature recorded. And combiner runs on this map2 also, map2 task also. And what is the maximum temperature that is recorded in 1950? 25. So this is taken by the combiner function. So what happens now? What is happening now? Combiner function is running on the map side, map 1 side, map 2 side, and instead of giving this big data, it is giving only this much data. You understood the difference? Rather than passing 3 different A temperatures, it has combined them and found the maximum temperature on the map side itself, and now it is passing only 1 temperature to the reduce phase. Now you can see that the data transferred between map and reduce phase reduced a little, right? Instead of passing 3 temperatures, it is passing just 1 temperature. Here, instead of passing 2 temperatures, it is just passing 1 temperature here. So it has reduced the combiner phase, which acts as a shuffling and sorting phase, which is run on the map side, will reduce the amount of data that is transferred between map and reduce. Now, what kind of data is passed to the reduce phase as input? In 1950, the combiner function already found that from the first map task it is 20, the maximum temperature is 20, and from the second map task the maximum temperature is 25. Now this is passed as input to the reduce phase. In the previous case, what happened? It passed 0, 10, 20, 21 and 25. But now it is just passing 20 and 25. Rather than 5 different temperatures, it is just passing 2 temperatures. This is the advantage of combiner function. Got it? Now we may express the function calls on the temperature values in this case as follows. How we can do this? Say in this case, the maximum of this has to be calculated. Now, if you don't use a combiner function, what will happen? It has to first group all the values belonging to a specific key, say 1950. These are the temperatures recorded, and all these temperatures have to be passed to the reduce phase. But because of introducing a combiner function, first maximum of all these temperatures are found, that is 20, and maximum of all these temperatures is found by the combiner function, that is 25, and maximum of this needs to be found now, which is done by the reduce phase and gives us the final maximum A temperature. You understood clearly? The map function, the combiner function runs on the side of map function, and instead of this big output, it reduces to this much output by finding the maximum at that particular level. Again, for map 2, it found the maximum temperature at that particular level. Now these two are grouped, which will give you 1950, 20 and 25. Now this key value pair, it is smaller when compared to the previous case when combiner function is absent. Okay, now this is passed to the reduce phase as input, and it gives the final output. Okay, that is the advantage of combiner function. But when you are finding average, say average of 0, or when you take median, instead of max function, if you are taking median function and finding out 0, 20 and 10 and median of 25 and 15, then the median of the first combiner phase will be different and second combiner phase will be different, which will give you a wrong result by the end. Median of these two phases, again it will be different. So what is happening here? You have to decide based on the aggregate function. Here the aggregate function you are using is max, which doesn't impact your final output, though you introduce combiner function. But when you are using median as your aggregate function, in that case, introducing combiner function will deviate your final result, will change your final result. In such cases, it is not a good idea to use combiner functions. So based on the aggregate function you are using in your reducer phase, you have to decide whether to use a combiner function or not. Because remember I'm highlighting this point again, combiner function is an optimization phase. It should not change the final output in any manner. It should just work towards reducing the data transfer between map phase and the reducer phase. It should not impact the final output in any way. So based on the aggregate function you are using in your reduce phase, you have to decide whether to use a combiner function or not. Now the combiner function, how is it specified? You know how to write a mapper class, you know how to write a reducer class, you also know how to pack it into a job. Now where to introduce this combiner function? Very, very easy. It is just a single line. The combiner function is defined using the reducer class, and for this application, it is the same implementation as the reducer function in max temperature reducer. The only change we need to make is to set the combiner class on the job. I'll show you how you do that. Now, you instead of a max temperature class, max temperature reducer, you are writing max temperature with combiner. Means you are trying to introduce a combiner function into this Java code. That is why you have changed the class name a little. Instead of max temperature, sorry, you have your original class name as max temperature, right? When you're packing the job, the class name is max temperature. You remember? Now, instead of max temperature, you're writing it as max temperature with combiner because you're trying to add the combiner function here. Now, what is the only change you do is, while setting the mapper class, you use max temperature mapper dot class. While setting the reducer class, you use max temperature reducer class. Now, you have to add this single line in the middle in order to add the combiner function to optimize the data transfer between map phase and the reduce phase. To minimize the data transfer between map phase and reduce phase, you're trying to introduce a combiner function. That combiner function can be introduced like this directly. Job dot set combiner class, and this combiner class does the job of reducer class only, right? It is finding the local maximum temperature in map 1 and local maximum temperature in map 2. Okay, so it is trying to find the maximum temperature itself. So this code is same as your max temperature reducer. That is why you are using the same class here, max temperature reducer dot class file, but you're setting it as a combiner class. Setting it as a combiner class, you're trying to make it run on the mapper side, okay, which will consolidate the local result and give it as minimal input to the reducer phase, which will give you the final output. No other change can need to be made. Okay, instead of leaving or being irresponsible of network utilization for data transfer between map phase and reduce phase, you're acting little responsibly by adding a combiner class so that the data transfer between map and reduce phase can be optimized. Okay, so without this also your job will work, but with introducing this combiner function, your job will work more optimally. You can bring down the execution time. But remember what kind of aggregate function you are using in reducer phase to consolidate the output. Whether that is compatible enough with the combiner phase, you have to think a moment before introducing this combiner function. Now, running a distributed map reduce job, how we actually do this? The same program will run without alteration on a full data set also. Yes, it can run, but it will be spread onto different nodes rather than small number of nodes. Now it can be spread onto more number of nodes. It scales to the size of your data and the size of your hardware. Same Java program, same mapper class, same reducer class, same packing of the job. This entire Java code can be scaled onto a HDFS cluster without any alteration, which can run on the entire NCDC dataset. It scales to the size of your dataset and the size of your hardware also. On a 10 node Elastic Compute Cloud cluster, EC2 cluster, on a 10 node EC2 cluster, running high CPU extra large instances, maximum capability of these clusters, the program to process this entire NCDC data of 100 years weather conditions that are captured by sensors at various weather stations. That program took 6 minutes to run. That voluminous amount of data just took 6 minutes to run if it is run on 10 node EC2 cluster. Now imagine if you increase the number of nodes or if you increase the number of clusters, this processing time will still come down. It may be in 1 minute or it may be in 30 seconds that entire processing can be done. So what you understood by this, same code will be scaled up to large amounts of data, to over large number of nodes in the cluster. You can use the same code, but as you go on increasing the number of nodes, the processing time will come down. Now what about Hadoop streaming? Hadoop streaming data. When some data is being streamed dynamically into Hadoop, then how is it processed? Hadoop provides an API to MapReduce that allows you to write your map and reduce functions in languages other than Java. You can write these MapReduce functions in C, C++, Ruby, Python. It is quite flexible. It is not that you have to write these APIs in only a particular language. Hadoop provides an API to MapReduce that allows you to write your MapReduce functions in wide set of programming languages. Now, Hadoop streaming uses Unix standard streams as the interface between Hadoop and your program, right? So what is the main stream that is taken here in order to act as an interface between Hadoop and your programs? Unix standard streams are taken. You can use any language that can read standard input and write to standard output to write your MapReduce programs, because the common stream you're using is Unix standard streams. You can be flexible in the selection of your language, whichever language you're comfortable with. You can take that language to write your map and reduce tasks. Now, streaming is naturally suited for text processing. You know how text processing is done in order to find what is the sentiment involved in the text, whether it is having a positive polarity. Say some trending issue is going on social media. Now, there are some tweets or posts put on social media about that topic. Now, if you wanted to know whether the people are having a positive polarity or a negative polarity with respect to that trending issue, you can do that by processing the text posted by the participants of social media, right? Now, streaming is naturally suited for text processing because the data keeps on being streamed in continuously, right? So map input data is passed over standard input to your map function, which processes it line by line and writes writes the output to its standard output, either to the screen or to a file in the HDFS cluster. Now a map output
Ma'am,
key.
it's time up.
Okay, this is the last slide. I'll just stop. I'll complete this and stop it. Okay. So a map output key value pair is written as a single tab delimited line, and input to the reduce function is in the same format, a tab separated key value pair passed over the standard output. So whatever is the data, however it is being processed, they are processed in the form of key value pairs itself. So the reduce function reads lines from standard input, which the framework guarantees are sorted by key, and writes its results to the standard output. So though the data that is being streamed is in the form of unstructured format, they will be processed to form the key value pairs and given as input to the map and reduce phases, which will give you the final result in a processed form, in a consolidated form, right? Now in the coming session, we'll discuss on Hadoop pipes and compiling and running the programs.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am, can you tell me the second internals portions, ma'am, big data?
third and fourth chapters. I'll send you the notes. Notes is ready for this third and fourth modules. I'll send it today itself. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
You
Thank you,
have
ma'am.
first and second were done for first internal. So you have set third and fourth modules.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. After this class, I'll send you the module notes.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. We'll meet in the next class. I'll take attendance.